You need 200K a year to afford a home in California. That's right. Working class people are being priced out of the promise they were told to believe in, the American dream. KTLA just reported that Californians need to earn over 200K a year just to afford a median home. And median could still be a little hood, right? What happened to the American dream, right? So I'm looking here. They're looking at the average American household, saying it needs a six-figure income to afford a home in 2025, according to a new study. Which, being in mortgage, I do retain a mortgage license. Other people in my family retain a mortgage license. I have a real estate license, although it's in another state. It's not transferable to where I moved. This makes perfect sense to me. This is in line. This is far from a conspiracy theory. And what the study found is that home buyers in the U.S. need an annual household income of $117K to afford a typical home. That's a 50% increase from 2020. I'm going to go out on a limb to say you're going to need more than 117 because you're not thinking about the DTI, which is called DTI is debt to income ratio. So when you're purchasing a mortgage, your mortgage plus whatever bills you have that are monthly occurring on your your credit report, that's going to be your debt to income ratio. Now that goes over a certain percentage depending on if you're a vet, or what type of loan you get, a FHA or a conventional or a non-conventional. That'll tell you how much DTI you can have, and there's a little bit of a range there. But buyers in 6 states, Washington, D.C., needed a six-figure income to afford home in only 6 states and Washington, D.C. So now they're saying that was in 2020. Now that's the case in more than 30 states. So the culprit, they're saying, is elevated mortgage rates and overall rising costs of home prices in general. Let me tell you something about mortgage rates. When my grandma bought her home in the 80s, the mortgage rates were in the teens. Now, mind you, this is a woman who never made over $20 an hour, didn't make a lot of money, and had a second job stuffing advertisements in the Los Angeles Times so they could go out on Sundays. So she would they used to have newspapers where you would get a newspaper, but on Sunday you would get like the special inserts with all the coupons and special advertisements. That was their big money maker, and she would go and do that on Saturdays. So they would go out on Sundays, and I think they would have everything there except probably that first page. That first page would probably come if an emergency happened, but it was ready to go out for Sunday for everybody to see. So somebody back then in the teens could buy a house in a neighborhood that I know for sure now is in that same neighborhood, that house close to $1 million. So now you're looking at a mortgage of $6,000 to $7,500. Now $6,000 to $7,500. If you have to stay, I'm sure you got to stay under 50%. But just showing you 50% of that, your DTI, you're going to need to be making way over $117,000 to be able to afford it. And that's if you're having. We're not even considering any other bills like a car payment, credit card payments, etc. So let's read a little bit more and show you. So California households, this is what I want to tell you, need to make $213,447 respectfully to afford a typical home in the state. It's the third highest figure, behind only Washington, D.C. and Hawaii in that order. I could see Hawaii. There's not as much land. So those looking to lay down roots in other states might find their options are also limited in 20 2025. States like Utah and Montana have seen massive increases in housing costs, with the income requirement jumping more than 80% in both states. Wyoming, Maine, and Tennessee also saw needed income spike since 2020. In some states, your money still goes quite far. Let's see. Top 5 states: West Virginia, Iowa, Ohio, Mississippi, and Indiana. Arizona, we were looking at Arizona. Prices are crazy over there to live in the middle of nowhere. When we were driving to Sedona, away from the major city, they had houses priced, either you must have been retired to be able to get it because nobody else was going to be able to pay. They had like $500,000, $500,000 houses that there was nowhere to work. There's no infrastructure to support it, but that was the price of those houses. Texas, great place. You could still grab a deal, but also increasing in price more and more and more and more and more. I say in 5 years, it'll be probably like Utah. If you're able to buy some land right now or be able to get some property, I'd recommend doing it now, because in 5 years, if you're saving up to be able to do it, it's not going to be in certain states unless something drastically changes. And this is, part of this problem has to do with us allowing corporations to, remember, SFH stands for single family home. And part of the problem is we've allowed businesses like BlackRock that can write blank checks, and not just them, lots of big companies invest in single family homes. And now you have single families competing with huge corporations over property. Not multi-family homes, building complexes, building investments, single family homes that were created specifically for single families. So this drives up the cost. This is a fake inflation, if you will, that becomes a real inflation because we're paying it, but it was created by these companies. Also, you have, in no other country, if I want to go to Mexico right now and buy a home, I can't buy it. I can rent the land for a very long time, but me, as not being a Mexican citizen, I can never own a home there. And a lot of countries have this policy. Our country, you can come and invest and buy, use your money and purchase up our real estate. Don't believe me? Look at what's happening to all the farmland. China's coming in and they got a ton of farmland, especially in Texas. Look it up. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are actual factuals. These are reports. This is data. This is not data construed to make you think. This is actually happening. There have been several instances where foreign money has come in and bought out a single family home right from under an American single family. Same with an American corporation putting cash down and the owner wanting to sell to the cash right now. You heard the parties talk about making homes affordable, but what you didn't hear, and that's what it really would have got me on somebody's side, is if they said, we need to stop these people from purchasing single family homes because these are for American single families. People that are coming to live here, work here, and enjoy the American dream. That's what they're for. And so that would have been something you could run on and would have lit a fire for whoever said it. But I feel like that was by design that it wasn't said. So that's my little conspiracy. Like, there's no way that I'm sitting here seeing and connecting these dots and knowing this, and that the powers to be just somehow are aloof whether they're on the left or the right. But you don't hear anybody saying about the particular issues that are happening, that these big companies are coming and competing with a guy who, is going to work every day to feed his family and trying to buy a house, and now he can't. And so that brings me into Proverbs 22, verse 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is the servant to the lender. So when housing becomes a luxury item, we're not just talking economics. We're talking ethics. If home ownership is now gatekept by extreme income, huge American corporations with blank checks, foreign money investing in land when we could not reciprocate and own the land, invest and own the land in their country, we're talking maybe if that's what home ownership is now, then maybe the system isn't broken. Maybe it's designed that way. Because if it was broken, we'd want to fix it. But you're just hearing me on YouTube talk about this. You've probably never heard somebody talk about this before, maybe. Or maybe you've had this thought and you've wondered, is it true? Well, let me tell you, somebody who has a background, has a license, has seen the other side, has his pulse on the industry, I can tell you these things are definitely happening. I can tell you that there's a certain amount of SFHs where they want to rent them out. And they want to rent those homes out to you. You may think that's good. That's good and dandy. Well, it's good till it's not, right? And here's what I mean by that. When you have no equity, when you spend your whole life and have no equity, and there's an issue, there's so many people who have had the ability to kind of reset, either by utilizing their equity or allowing people to come back home and being able to live and pick themselves back up and build themselves back up. You rent a house from somebody, you just can't let anybody live there. Everybody in every single room needs to be approved. I own my house. No one can tell me they can't tell me like, well, we need to run your kid's credit now since he's coming back home and maybe his credit's not good and he wants to come back home. And now I'm like, oh, well, I can't let you come to the rented house that BlackRock owns or some landlord owns. No. But if I own it, no one can tell me that. So there's a lot of things that people, and that's just one. I'll get into them if you want to hear it. Ask questions in the comment section. I can get into it on a deeper level. But for this story, we're just kind of scratching the surface a little bit, talking about it. But there's a lot of things that you're not thinking about when you're renting. You're not thinking long term. I've heard some great people that I respect say that people should just rent. And those same guru leaders are purchasing as much property in a portfolio as they possibly can. But they tell you not just to rent. Of course they want you to rent. They need more tenants. You now are no longer even a person in a house. You're a customer in the store. You're a part when you go to work, and when you come home, you're a customer. You live as a customer. You're enjoying your sleep as a customer. That's not the American dream, people. God, family, country. I want to ask you guys a question. Is the dream still alive, or do we need a new one rooted in something deeper than wealth? I'm going to tell you, I think the dream is still alive. It's just being stolen. And all we need to do is set the record straight, set the priorities straight, and keep going.